Hello, Garland Nixon here, and I guess it's appropriate to say on the east coast of the U.S. here, where we got snow and ice. NATO has one foot in the grave and the other on a patch of ice. It is a zombie that doesn't know it's dead. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here. And before we get going, don't forget, I got a Substack. I just put an article up. I'll be putting articles up fairly regularly. And of course, we got the join button. We got a join button. So click the join button. It's like $4.99 a month or something like that to be a member of this YouTube channel. So click, subscribe, like, all that kind of stuff. And of course, join. My mic was muted. All right. I hope it wasn't muted the whole time. At any rate, let's go. If somebody let me know in the chat room, was it muted the whole time or did it just suddenly mute? I don't know what happened. At any rate, let's talk. Maybe somebody in the chat will let me know. Was it muted from the very beginning or did it just become unmuted? I'm looking at the chat. Somebody's going to tell me. Maybe it wasn't. Nope, just the last few seconds. All right, now we're talking. Now we can get somewhere. Thank you very much, Robbie Burns. Or that wasn't Robbie. That was just C Drive 300. All right, I don't know what's weird. So let's get going. We got big fish to fry here. NATO. I just don't see how NATO survives. In fact, I think it's already dead. Let me give, I love to give analogies and, I love old school zombie movies. So there was this particular zombie movie that I do remember. It was a short story or whatever, where this lady, there's a zombie apocalypse and she's trying to rush. She's like, oh my gosh, there's a zombie apocalypse. I got to get to my friend's house and check on my friends and see how they're doing. She's going through, there's zombies everywhere. She's running. The zombies don't seem to be messing with her, but she's running. So anyway, she goes through all of this stuff. Let me get to the end part. She gets to her friend's house, bangs on the door. They open the door and they all run screaming from her. She's a zombie and she didn't realize it. And then she gets there. They all run from her. She doesn't realize the reason none of the zombies were bothering her in the street is because she's one of them. Here's my point. That's how I see NATO right now. The other day, the guy's Root or whatever his name is, Rutte, is saying, we're stronger than ever. We've got to put more money into NATO and we've got to build 5%, 10%, no, 100% of GDP, 200% of GDP, right? The next, everything that everybody has ever was going to make's got to go to NATO, right? And I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? Of course, I'm being facetious, but you get my point. I think he got up to 5%. And I'm thinking, I don't see how NATO survives. Let's start this. Let's just go to where the guy Mark Root, I think his name. Let's go. Yes, that's it. Let's go with this clown. And this really explains why NATO's dead. Okay, 5% of GDP. He's saying, you know what? 5% of nothing is nothing. Have you seen the deterioration? Have you noticed the deterioration of the German and French and British economies? So let's just say, for the sake of argument, they're able to get 5% of the GDP. We'll go get to that later. Let's just say you get 5% of Germany's GDP in the next 5 years. Do you know what Germany's GDP is going to be? You won't be able to buy a beer with it. So 5% of the GDP of, let's say, Haiti, a country that's been destroyed by the U.S. empire, right? 5% of the GDP of Yemen. That's kind of what we're going to be looking at. The Ukraine conflict, the Ukraine project, because the Ukraine conflict is part of a greater project for U.S. hegemony. The Ukraine conflict itself has created a dynamic in the European economic bloc, where significant, precipitous deterioration has begun and will not stop anytime soon. Europe's economy is finished. And there's a number of reasons too. One of the other, um, another part of the fallout of this conflict is in Africa. Let's not forget one of the things that happened a while back, and I think these things were inextricably linked, is there was an Africa summit. And during that Africa summit, President Putin said, I will work with Africa to ensure their sovereignty and independence, right? In other words, I'm going to help you guys get free of imperialism. That's what it sounded like to me, right? Sounded like what the Soviet Union used to say. And next thing you know, within a week after the Africa summit, within a week, I think it was Burkina Faso, within, let's say, a month, Niger, Burkina Faso, they were throwing the French out. They were overthrowing the governments and saying, French, get the hell out of here. So one of the things that has happened is France, which isn't really a rich country, it's an empire. So a mini empire. So France was living off of the nickel from New Caledonia, the gold, and basically the natural resource of the Sahel region in Africa. They were stealing every dime of it, right? Well, as a result of this conflict, the Africans got more independent with the help of Russia, I firmly believe. They kicked the damn French out. And so a significant amount of income theft, a significant, I call it income, a significant amount of the theft that the French were doing in Africa has been cut down, which means France's economy is going to have to rely on itself and its own abilities. And that ain't gonna work out so well for a country that's been stealing and robbing around the world for the last several centuries. France is done. Okay. On top of that, they get their energy from mostly from nuclear, a lot from nuclear power. Of course, they were getting the nuclear material for next to nothing from Niger and I think one other country they made, but mostly Niger. They've got a lot of uranium there. Well, that's all gone. So now France is going to have to pay market price to get uranium. And might I add, they're going to be paying above market price for gas and energy. So the fact of the matter is the United States specifically planned to cut Europe off from Russian energy. And while, in fact, that does strengthen the US's grip on power because they've got to get their energy from the US at much, much higher prices. So yes, good news. It will strengthen the US's for the US empire. It's going to strengthen your grip and control on Europe. Bad news is this: how are you going to have NATO? You sell these people weapons. It's almost kind of like what's going on in the US and in the West period. And that is we're creating an environment where you're making it cheaper and cheaper to make goods. But, well, not cheaper and cheaper to make the goods. You're raising the price of the goods. So that means you can make them cheap in some other country, Mexico, wherever the hell. You can raise the price for a greater profit, but nobody can afford to buy the goods. So guess what? You're going out of business. Look at the truck market right now, pickup trucks. 80, 90, 100,000 for pickup trucks. Middle class people buy pickup trucks. Middle class people can't afford $80,000, 70, 60 either for a pickup truck. So, I mean, take an example. I have a pickup truck, right? My pickup truck, I mean, I have a regular car, but my pickup truck is a 2013, right? In 2013, it was the top of the line pickup trucks, right? It had everything you could possibly get, you name it. And so, and 2013, this was a premier Ford's. This is, man, you want everything you can get on a Ford pickup truck, diesel engine, you name it, chrome, or everything. So the top pickup truck they sold, as far as other than you get into the big dual wheels and stuff like that, but as far as the average person would buy, was 63,000. That was a lot, but that was the top of the line then. Now, that same pickup truck would be over $100,000. People can't afford $100,000, which means if that pickup truck was 63 top of the line, that means you could probably buy pickup trucks in 2013s in the 30s, maybe 40, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Now, forget it. Can't get a little a bicycle for $30,000 or $40,000 in the US. People can't afford it, right? So here's my point. With all of that, you want to sell arms to Europe because you got them all in NATO and they got to buy arms, but they're not going to be able to afford the arms. They ain't going to be able to afford to heat their homes. They're not going to be able to afford food. All of the free college and stuff that they got, all of the things like medical care for everybody, they ain't going to be able to afford that stuff. And when they can't afford it, the people are going to be enraged. And they're going to say, yeah, but we got to buy more weapons. And people are going to be dying of easily preventable diseases, of hunger and starvation. Of course, the diseases of despair, such as addiction and alcoholism, things like gambling. Those things increase with the despair. So you will have a desperate Europe that will be going downhill, and they won't be able to buy stuff for NATO. So the first thing that's going to definitely kill NATO is that you're going to impoverish the countries. They won't be able to buy the hardware. Now, Russia will, but they make their own. So the impoverishment of NATO means, and if you think about it, if you start reading back in the 90s about NATO, I know a particular article, I'd have to find it, in the New York Times, basically, and it was about the expansion of NATO during I think it was 96, 97. And in this article, they talked about opening these former Soviet states up to NATO and all the money that could be made. And all these arms dealers that were so excited, they were going to sell F-16s, they were going to sell this and that. So they were excited. So a big part of NATO expansion, amongst other things, was to make more money, right? To fleece the suckers, to bring the countries in and say, we got to protect you. Oh, by the way, you got to buy lots of stuff from us. We want to suck your coffers dry. When we get finished with you, you'll have weapons and we'll have all your money. And we'll still be in control of those weapons because you won't be able to use them unless we give you permission. So you'll kind of have weapons, but we'll have control of them, and we'll have all your money. Thank you, suckers. That's what it was about. And now it has kind of gotten to a point where they're still selling lots of weapons. And Mark Rutte is out saying we need to buy more weapons, but they don't have the money. And even if they get the 5%, which they won't, 5% of a dollar is 5 cents. And I don't think you can buy an F-16 or F anything else 35 with 5 cents. Okay, so the impoverishment of NATO serves the purpose of enriching the U.S., of making NATO more subservient to the U.S. However, it has maybe the unintended consequences of destroying the market for U.S. military goods. All right, that's one. Let's go to number two. That same impoverishment has some political ramifications. The people are poor, and when people get poor, they get pissed. And when people get pissed, they want somebody else in charge. So what we're already starting to see, people who are seeking alternative parties. Now, the European ruling elite are certainly doing everything they can to thwart democracy. They tried to overthrow the government in Georgia. Right now, they're doing everything they can to go after the government in Slovakia, Romania. You see what they did there. So they're making every effort they can, but they're fighting a losing battle. Excuse me. They're swimming against the tide. They're Czechoslovakia, Austria, you name it. Isn't it interesting that Eastern Europe are getting the hell out first? Eastern Europe's like, things ain't going so good. Perhaps we should go in another direction. Western Europeans, not so slow, not so fast. Maybe it's because Eastern Europe has been poor. They've struggled longer, and they don't like the feel of it. The Western Europeans do not believe that they can be impoverished. They see it happening, but they don't believe their eyes. They think that, it's like they're in they use terms like we're in a recession. Here's the problem. Yeah, kinda. The only problem with it implies that your economic situation is of a temporary nature. The term recession, have you heard this? Germany and UK are about to slide into a recession. Yeah, well, okay, yeah, that's one way you could put it. Sliding into a recession kind of implies that at some point you'll get out of that recession, don't it? It's kind of like saying the Sahara Desert it's been in a drought for 2.7 million years. I mean, come on. I mean, it's going to start raining eventually there, but maybe it may take another million or two. That ain't a drought. That's a desert. The difference between a drought and a desert is simply understanding that it ain't gonna rain here no more. So you can call it a drought if you want to imply that it's of a temporary nature, but that temporary nature is literally millions of years. Now, as we watch the UK slide into impoverishment, and Germany and France and the rest of them slide into impoverishment, desperation, despair, humiliation, we watch that. The discussion sooner or later of a recession is going to change, because and that's when the real fury comes. People are starting to get pissed now, but they ain't pissed now. They ain't pissed in Europe yet. They're not pissed. They're starting to get pissed because they're kind of even, and I bet you some of the Europeans are thinking, you know, doggone it, this thing's going to be over at some point. And when it's over, we'll come back. We'll get Russian gas again, and good things will happen again. We'll wake up. We'll be eating baguettes and drinking wine and cheese in downtown Paris. Oh boy, when it's over, and maybe it'll be over soon. Maybe old Trump will get it over. Maybe it'll just burn out. Maybe the Russians will win. Something's going to happen. It'll be over. And when it's over, oh, happy days are here again. The skies above are clear again. Happy days are here again. Nope. Bad news. And that's when they're going to get really pissed. When they're like, okay, it's over. Yeah. Quick, call the Russians. We want more energy. Hello? Hello? The Russians won't answer. We're calling them to say we want to get our energy going. Even you may get a leader in a given country that says we're going back to Russian energy. Who's to say the U.S. won't blow the damn pipelines up again? Oh, really? You got your pipelines going again? Yeah. Hey, call out the divers. Time to blow the pipelines. What the hell? They blew it once. Why wouldn't they blow it again? You mean nothing to them, Europe. They hate your guts. They can't stand you. You are nothing but food for them. They will eat you and to fatten themselves. Europe, if you don't wake up, which you won't, to realize that the U.S. is your enemy. They are not. You're not in an alliance with Germany's in an alliance with the U.S. Really? Yeah. And what are they to do? Protect Germany's infrastructure, like say Nord Stream? Interesting alliance there. I'll put it like that. If I got an alliance with somebody who's going to blow up my stuff, I'm probably going to try to get out of that alliance and get in a new one. I'm just saying, they ain't your friends. They're here to protect you from. Did you know this? And Germany's got to like turn their heads and pretend this isn't true. The U.S. literally, according to Seymour Hersh, used this operation where NATO was doing some drill, pretending they were going to be attacked by the Russians. The Biden administration used a NATO drill to send their divers down and attach the bombs to the Nord Stream pipeline. They literally used a drill that was pretending to protect Germany from an attack by Russia to attack Germany. Think about that. And that's your ally and that's your friend. And they still got bases in your country. Those are not bases of defense. Those are bases of occupation. They have attacked the Germans. And might I add, Germany now is the most humiliated country on earth. They're the most humiliated country. Germany, people are just like shaking their heads, laughing at Germany, saying, oh my God, what a Germany. What the hell? What an embarrassing place. Germany has been humiliated, has been degraded. Meanwhile, the world's looking at Germany like, hey, I don't know if you figured this out, guys, but they're deliberately deindustrializing you. They cut off your gas and then passed a law called the Inflation Reduction Act, which rewarded companies for leaving there and coming here. And you still think they're your friends. You're still hanging out with them. While, in fact, the U.S. has gotten away with it for now. The time is coming, and it is very, very near, where the people in Germany will be forced to face reality. Now, unfortunately, it'll be a time when they're hungry, when they're desperate, when they're saying, what the hell happened? Volkswagen shut down, Mercedes-Benz is shut down, BMW is shut down. All of them are going to shut down. And what will you have left in Germany? Beer? Snow? Memories. Oh, those sweet memories of back when things were good before the U.S. blew up our damn infrastructure and impoverished us, before Annalena Baerbock and Schultz sold us out, sent all of our money to a bunch of neo-Nazis, and then literally said, Annalena Baerbock literally said, I don't care what the voters say. We're supporting Ukraine. They didn't care about you. And so now the Germans are screwed. All of Europe is screwed, really. UK is already over. Anybody that get the hell out of there needs to get out because that place is a disaster. So Germany, I'll put it like this: Germany and the UK are at the bottom of the heap, but the rest of Europe is following them. You can't keep having industry with the kind of money you're going to have to pay for, for energy. You can't be successful. And at some point, the people are going to wake up. They're starting to, maybe. And of course, there will be political uproar. They're going to try, they will bring in the most extreme, and I'm not saying that in a bad way or a good way, the most extreme politicians. And I think the time will come when the politicians that will come in will be like, I hate the EU. I hate NATO. I hate the US. That's where we're getting to. They're going to wake up to realize that, and you won't be able to win in Europe unless you're anti-NATO, anti-EU, and despise the US. The time's coming when that's going to be there. The problem you're going to have is the US still has you by the short and curlies. You can hate the US all you want to. They have subjugated you. You're buying your energy from them. And you've infuriated the Russians so bad, they ain't coming back. They may, but at market price, you're not going to get that cheap energy anymore. And why should the Russians? Yeah, because the Germans are like, hey, we are some of the Germans are already starting. We want to reopen Nord Stream. The time will come when there will be a roar from one side of Germany to the other. I ain't saying it's going to be next week or next month. Could be a couple years out. But the time will come when there will be a roar from one side of Germany to the next, saying, we must reopen Nord Stream. And if it is open, the Russians will probably say, okay, you can pay us. Pay us. Pay us for all the damages to Nord Stream. Pay us for pay. If you want it, you can get it. But you're going to have to pay your dues. And Germany probably won't have it. But they'll have to get it. But it's also possible, I think, and maybe even likely, that the Russians will say, look, that gas that you were getting, yeah, we got contracts for China. We got contracts for Bangladesh, whoever the hell, Vietnam, you name it. Sorry, bad news. We have contracted all of our energy out. We'd like to come back and help you out. We really would. We just don't have any extra gas for you. So you can buy it on the world market if you choose. I mean, we have some gas on the world market, but as far as us hooking pipelines back up to you, the last one time we did that didn't work out so well. What Americans don't know is the Russians weren't thrilled with doing Nord Stream. They weren't thrilled with that. Angela Merkel had to convince Vladimir Putin to do that. And now, after you want to do something and I don't want to do it, and I join partners with you to do this venture, and you blow it up and then attack me, you blow it up, and now the Russians are looking on their border and there's a bunch of guys with goose stepping around with Hitler tattoos all over them, driving German tanks on their border, and you think that Russia's going to bail Germany out? I don't see that happening. I just don't see that happening. I see Germany crawling back at some point and some others crawling back. And I see Russia saying, have a nice life, dude. Have a nice life. So that's a big part of it. I think that the other part, and this is obvious, NATO is a, quote, military alliance. Really, it's a military dictatorship. It is the subjugation of Europe's foreign policy under an umbrella organization called NATO that's run by the United States. So NATO NATO and the EU are two organizations that are specifically designed to take the sovereignty away from Europe, to make it nothing but a subjugated colony for US imperialism. That's what NATO is. That's what the EU is. But in order, even then, to be a military alliance, you got to produce some things. You have to have some industry. Mark Rutte, I believe it was, recently said that Russia industrially creates more war material in 3 months than all of NATO does in a year, which I think is likely true, somewhere around that. And part of it is, of course, NATO doesn't have cheap energy. Interestingly enough, the only way that NATO, that the Europeans could have the infrastructure, the industrial infrastructure. Now, here's a paradox. The only way that NATO could have the industrial infrastructure to go up against Russia would be if Russia supplied them cheap energy so they could maintain a strong industrial base. But why would Russia want you to have a strong industrial base if you're going to use that industrial base to build weapons to come to their damn border and put Nazis in it again? Hey, what do you need? We need money for what? So we can build tanks. And what are you going to do with those tanks? Well, we're going to put a bunch of goose stepping, Sieg Heil, and Nazis in them, and they'll be back on your border firing at you again and traipsing around the Kursk region looking for innocent civilians to kill. Nah, perhaps we ain't going to go down that route. That's what the Russians are going to do. So now you have demonstrated to them that you are not a friendly partner. You're not a friendly country. You're not an ally. You're an enemy who wants to destroy them. Why would you continue to strengthen your enemies? So your only route, NATO's only route as an economic bloc in Europe to get strong enough to challenge Russia, as it were, because you know they would love to go to war with Russia. They hate Russians. They're not irrational. The only way, the leadership of Europe, the only way they could do that is if Russia would start selling them gas again, and or cheap gas, and allow them to reindustrialize. And I just think Russia's going to leave them on their own and say, you figure it out. You figured out how to get yourself into this mess. You figure out how, like parents say to their children sometimes, right? Like people say to someone, as long as it isn't too bad and they weren't them a lesson, well, you got yourself into this mess, you get yourself out. I remember one time I was on the bicycle trail riding my bike in the summer, and I ran into a friend of mine I hadn't seen in years, and he was about 3 times the size he was. I'm like, hey, how you going, buddy? We used to play basketball when we were younger. How you going? He goes, yeah, I gained a lot of weight. He says, well, I got myself into this. I got to get myself out. And off he went sweating riding his bicycle. And I thought, well, that's a good thing to say. It could happen. Somebody could gain weight. But he didn't blame anybody. He didn't make excuses. He said, I got myself into this. I got to get myself out. Factual, right? I think that's what the Russians are going to say to Germany and all of NATO, all of the European bloc. We need energy, cheap energy. Why? So we can rebuild our industry. Why? So we can make tanks and attack you. Yeah, funny thing that. Well, in that case, no. So they won't be able to rebuild their industry because philosophically speaking, they have demonstrated that they hate the people that they need to get the energy from. I mean, they didn't just, they're like, yes, we hate the Russians. Time to inflict a strategic defeat on the Russians. And they got sociopathic, pathological about their hatred for the Russians. What's the hell's up with the Europeans? Pathological. It was like, hey, you've got a Russian cat. They literally went after Bojo because he had a Russian breed of cat. Hey, that's a Russian painting there. What are you reading, Dostoevsky? Oh, my God, you Russian-loving Dostoevsky reading son of a gun. You're out of here. And the Russians saw this irrational hatred for Russians, and they're like, yeah, well, you're not going to have to convince us of that a second time. I think, let's see, Napoleon, Charles XII, Hitler, and now Biden and Starmer and all of these people, and Schultz and Baerbock running around saying get rid of everything Russian and Lithuanian and all that. I think the Russians have learned their lessons, and their lesson will be don't trust the Europeans. They hate you, and they don't hate you because of something you did to them. They hate you. I'm going to be honest with you. This is what I think. Why do so many Europeans hate Russians? Because they have been brainwashed to hate Russians by their ruling elite and their leaders, because their ruling elite and their leaders want to steal all of Russia's natural resources. They want to take over the Eurasian, the ruling elite want to take over, to own the Eurasian landmass. And the only way to do that is to take Russia. And so the only way that you can engage with Russia and do terrible things with Russia to Russia is if you convince the poor stooges in your country to walk around carrying a bunch of blue and yellow flags. And they were pretty successful in their brainwashing. They've been doing it for a lot of years. And now they're carrying blue and yellow flags, and they're going to end up having to eat those blue and yellow flags or starve to death, because they've been brainwashed. While people like us, me, and like you, the people in the chat, while people like us were saying you've been had. We were giving them the old Malcolm X treatment. You've been took, hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, misled. We're telling them you're being, we were telling people like us, you guys and me, we were saying to the people of Europe, you're being snookered. I was going on Galloway. I literally went on Galloway very early in this conflict. And I said, look, guys, I don't know if you figured this out or not. And I'm paraphrasing what I said, but they're deindustrializing you so they can steal your industry. They're impoverishing you. That's the game. Would they listen to me or you or any of us or Galloway? Nope. No, they know they hate those stinky old mean Russians. We don't need their old stupid Russian gas. Doesn't even burn right. It's too Russian-y. Right? They listened to that. Oh, we're standing with Ukraine. They had their I stand with Ukraine. Like you look on their social media posts and they had a little blue and yellow flag that said, I stand with Ukraine. Drive down the street in London or Paris and there's DC. There's these flags hanging off of balconies, the blue and yellow. Yeah, how's that looking now, gang? How's that looking now? How's that looking? You were told something again. There's a certain element in our society, and a very large element, that can't figure out that the ruling elite are lying criminals. And the ruling elite will give them one trope, narrative, and they'll believe it. And at some point, it'll come out. People now, as soon as they give them the narrative, be it about COVID or whatever, we're saying you guys should question it. No, you trust the science. They'll say, now we've got to stand with Ukraine. And we're like, hey, you know, those guys got on Nazis. Oh, you're a Putin lover, you. They're always degrading us. We're a crazy conspiracy theorist. We're Putin lovers, Saddam lovers, whatever the case may be, as we repeatedly tell them that they're being had. And at some point, they're going to wake up. And you know why they're going to wake up? Because they ain't going to be in a house. They're going to be in a tent. They're going to be in a shanty town. Have you ever seen those pictures of these countries, sadly, India and places like that, where they've got where you've got a big city, and on the edge of the city, there's a shanty town where people live in houses made literally of cardboard boxes and whatever they could find on the street, almost like a bird. They're literally like a birdhouse. You know, if you go to a birdhouse, if you look at a bird that they make their nest, you'll find pieces of cotton and string and twigs, anything they can find, they stick it together to live in it. And okay, that's my house, right? All right, that's what people are going to be living with in Europe. That you go to some of these poor countries, and that's basically what it is. If they can find an old piece of wood, cardboard, tarp, whatever, they stick it together. There you go. They live in that. The Philippines, there's a lot of places, right, where there's that kind of poverty. That's sadly what will wake up some of the Europeans. They'll wake up one morning and say, why in the hell am I living in a cardboard box with some tarp over the top of it in poverty, and I don't have any food and I'm hungry? Can I eat this cardboard box? And somewhere as they walk through their house, they'll see an old piece of material that they stuck up together to try to hold something together, and they realize that it's blue and yellow and it says, I stand with Ukraine. And they'll just stare. And they'll look around at their cardboard box. And for some reason, they won't know why. Every time they walk past that little blue and yellow thing that says, I stand with Ukraine, they'll stop. And it'll catch their attention. And there'll be a memory so back there somewhere, but they won't be sure what it is. But deep down inside, they'll know that's how they got in that box. They'll remember Mercedes, Fiat. They'll remember BMW and BASF. They'll remember those things. What's left of them now will be in the U.S., in Mexico, China, Vietnam, wherever, all gone. All gone. And they'll be like, you know, I think those crazy conspiracy theorists were right when they told us that standing with Ukraine was nothing but neocon, imperialist, whatever you want to call it, globalist lies to subjugate us. And now we're starving and poor. Darn, this is not a good time. Then they won't have to worry about African or Middle Eastern immigrants, because they're going to get the hell out of there and go back where they came from. They'll be like, I thought my country was poor. Let's face it, the globalists, the Citibanks and the Goldman Sachs, you know what the hell they're going to do, don't you? They're going to move their investments to the global south. That's what they're going to do. They're doing it already. They're going to move the Sahel region of Africa. They'll be living fine. They got palm trees and all that stuff. They'll be over there living good. They'll be sipping. They'll be the ones sipping wine and eating baguettes and wearing berets. They already got berets. And France will be impoverished. And the people who are from those countries will say, I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm going home. You know what? The Europeans will finally get what they want. They'll get rid of all of those pesky Middle Eastern and African and all of those pesky immigrants. Won't have to worry about them anymore because your country will be considerably more destitute, impoverished than theirs. That's what's coming for Europe. In fact, they'll be putting up walls. Hey, we got to put up walls. What for? To keep the damn Europeans out. They're coming in here like a bunch of roaches. Every time I turn around, they're sneaking in on boxcars. They're coming in trying to get some of our food. Hell out of here, Europeans. You ain't wanted here. That's what's coming. Sad, unfortunate. I'm not happy about it, but it is. Think about this. Joe Biden was in for 4 years. Europe has been for hundreds of years. Granted, they've been going around the world, still a lot of stuff. So another conversation. Hundreds of years. It's been a strong economic bloc. All these things they've had been building since the 1945, industry increasing, baguettes everywhere, warm beer in Steins in Germany, schnitzels. They got schnitzel. They've been eating schnitzel and drinking beer for all of these days. 4 years of Joe Biden and all that crap is out the window. You will recall the day in Germany that you could get your stinking hands on beer and a schnitzel. You will be melting snow. If you drink anything, you will have to melt snow and imagine that it's beer. That's what's coming. So let me ask you this. How the hell are you going to have a military alliance when you can't even afford a friggin' schnitzel? How are you going to do that? A military alliance with no schnitzel. And deep down inside, maybe even on the surface, every European is going to know what happened. A lot of Europeans are going to recall, young Europeans, Mom, Daddy, yes, why are we so poor and hungry? Well, little Bobby, let me tell you this story. Many years ago, our economic bloc was strong. We were doing well. We had jobs. We ate schnitzel. And then along came a great friend of Europe named Joe Biden, who said he was going to bring us together and we were going to stand up against Russian aggression. And now we can't eat schnitzel. End of story. I know it's not a nice fable. No, it's not one of Aesop's fables, but it is what it is. Bottom line is continue to chew on your dried bread and drink your coffee because we live off of dried bread and coffee now. The schnitzel days are all behind us. Remember back when Daddy used to have a job? I worked for BASF, and Mommy worked for Mercedes-Benz, and we had nice things, and we weren't living in this lean-to made of bits of cardboard and branches that we stuck that we had to wrestle a bird for because he was going to use them for the nest. Remember, well, those were the good old days, little Bobby. Now, and of course, they'll call the president, whoever it is, Donald Trump Jr., hey, and Trump's going to be like, am I getting 5% of Germany's GDP? And we're going to be like, yeah. How are you going to do it? And they'll be like, well, Cash App, okay? And Trump's going to be like, Cash App? Yeah, what the hell? I mean, they're going to be, well, you're getting 5% of GDP, right? Yeah. $50. That's, yeah, $50. I think we can Cash App that if you want to, or we can just like put it in a FedEx it or something like that. I don't know, however you want. We can mail it to you, but 5% of our GDP is now $50. And, put that down towards whatever you can for NATO. Put it down on an F-35 as an example. Maybe something like that. But bottom line is maybe we can buy a couple screws. You can't even buy a hammer from the Pentagon for $50, sadly. But that's going to be 5% of German GDP. So I'm thinking most likely if Germany is a colder version of Haiti, which is very appropriate because the U.S. destroys the economy of Haiti and then pretends as though Haiti is in bad shape because it mismanages its economy. Same with, the U.S. Sanctions away 99% of the income of Venezuela and then says, that Venezuela, they can't handle their money. The 1% they have left. That's what the U.S. does to Venezuela, and Germany and France and the UK go along with it. That's what The U.S. does to Haiti, Germany, and the France, and the UK, and all go along with it. You know what? The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And now, Europe, it is your turn. Now, let me take another little bit of angle towards this. The ruling elite have done that. And these are not the European people. The European people barely benefit from the massive theft that is perpetrated by the ruling elite. So the other side of it is this. Let me give you a possible out, because NATO is finished. NATO can't operate without money. And politically speaking, the people in Europe, when they realize how bad a condition they're in a revolt, it's over for NATO. However, and one other thing, might I add, Trump is, I gotta add this. Trump is I think, backing down from some of the all over the world. We got to run everything all over the world. I think Trump's backing down from some of that. And I don't think it's Trump. I think there is a segment of the ruling elite. Trump is not doing anything that the segment of the ruling elite that is floating him financially and floated his presidential candidacy. There's a segment of the ruling elite that wants Trump to do exactly what he's doing. They want to disentangle, and they want to strengthen at home, and they want to make sure that they can keep all of their billions. And so I think you're going to see that segment of the ruling elite also say, we can't afford Europe anymore. We can't afford to buy weapons, to do all these things and all these bases in Europe. And I think there's a segment of the ruling elite that wants to disentangle itself from Europe, but not before they steal all of your industry. Europe does serve a purpose. It has a strong industrial base, and the U.S. wants to reindustrialize. And guess what? They can't take industry from China or Bangladesh or Vietnam, can they? Where can they take industry from? Germany, Italy, France, the UK. They're stealing all your industry, and they're bringing it here. And they ain't going to be able to afford to float you anymore. And let's face it, think about this too. What do they want you for? You're going to be an impoverished backwater block. You ain't going to be the pretty girl anymore. The bloom is off the rose. They will impoverish you. They will steal your industry, and then they will reject you. And you'll say, well, what about all these bases? They're going to be like, yeah, we're closing them. Yeah, but are you going to protect us from the Russians? They'll be like, protect you from the Russians. That was all bullshit. We use that to rob you blind. So protect you from the Russians, please. Look, we don't have to play that game anymore. We don't have to pretend to protect you from the Russians anymore. We've taken your industry. We've taken your money. We've taken your manhood. We've taken everything. And now we're going to walk away and leave you crying with your pants down around your ankles, sucking your thumb. That's what we're going to leave you. Goodbye. See ya. Have a nice day. Bye. There is a segment of the ruling elite that want to disentangle the U.S. from Europe, and they're going to rob you blind, and then they're going to walk away. And so the U.S. is not going to be floating NATO in Europe anymore. They're going to say, you know what? I bet you this. I bet you this. Wouldn't shock me anyway. Trump wants to talk to Putin. And what do the Russians want? They want a comprehensive security deal with Russia. I mean, with Europe. They want to make a deal so they don't have to have all of this crap. That's what the Russians want. They want to say, let's make a deal with Europe. You get off my border. We back up. You won't shoot at us. We'll do this to make sure it doesn't work. I mean, make sure it works and everybody abides by the deal, blah, blah, blah. They want a deal, a security agreement. It wouldn't surprise me if Trump works on getting one. Why? So they can get the hell out of Europe. The only thing the U.S. needs Europe for is to steal its industry right now and then leave. And then we don't want to deal with all those mad and angry poor people. Sorry, that's your problem. European ruling elite. And the European ruling elite will get the hell out anyway. They'll be like, oh, man, looks pretty bad around here. What are you going to do? I'm going to Disneyland. We're moving to Orlando. They'll move the hell out because they got money. The ruling elite will get the hell out and leave and come to the U.S. or wherever the grass is greener. Or if things are going well in the global south, they'll move there, Dubai, whatever the hell. They will leave you holding the bag. They'll leave you with your I support Ukraine button on and your blue and yellow flag to wave and nothing to eat. So another reason that NATO is done is because the U.S. will reject Europe. You can't buy anything from. What do they need NATO for? If you can't buy military hardware from us because you're poor, then you're of no value to us anymore. We're getting out. I think the U.S. wants out. I think there's a segment of the ruling elite who said to Trump, get us out of this. See, people are like, Trump wants to do this. Trump wants to do that. Trump wants this. Trump couldn't do any of that crap at the ruling elite if there wasn't a powerful segment of the ruling elite that didn't want him to do it. They'd kill him. If Trump wanted to get out of NATO and a powerful segment of the ruling elite didn't want him out, they'd kill him. And you know as damn good as well as I do that they would. He's alive right now by their grace. And barely that, might I add. I still ain't convinced that the segments of the ruling elite that are fighting each other, I ain't still convinced that one of them might slip up and do something terrible and unthinkable to Trump. Wouldn't shock me. I hope it doesn't happen, but it wouldn't shock me. But even then, if that happened, then J.D. Vance is there. And J.D. Vance would do what the segment of the ruling elite that's financing them tell him to do. I think these people have told them, get in this crap. They don't like what's going on in Israel. I could go on as to why. One of the things they understand is they're losing their grip on power here. Israel is causing discord, shall we say. Here, they're losing their grip on power. And the ruling elite here are being discredited. Their right to rule is being challenged because of a lot of people, because of the genocide. That's a big part of it right now. There's the economic impoverishment of the average working class American, but their moral right to rule is being far worse than challenged. They have been discredited. A lot of Americans look at the ruling elite now and say they have no moral right to rule. There are literally people who are looking in, and I've had this discussion, just jokingly and as an aside or allusion, but there are people saying, yes, there was a lot of Zionist and rich people who got their houses burned down in LA, and that God did that to pay them back or something. And so, yay, I don't know. People are saying that stuff. And I mean, I jokingly may go along with it in jest, but as I always say, I don't want any bad thing to happen to anybody, and I certainly don't want to see people's houses burned down, their pets killed, innocent people killed. I'm not for that, but I'm just saying it demonstrates the fury that people have, see Luigi, at the ruling elite. I think that maybe that Luigi is scared to be Jesus out of the ruling elite, so much so that they're like all scared. Well, if they'll shoot us for that, maybe they'll also shoot us because of Israel, and maybe they will. Right? So we're looking at a ruling elite that I think Biden and the crazy neocons took things so far that it scared the crap out of them, and they want some changes. And Trump is put there to do those changes. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some people out there think that Donald Trump, that all of this is Trumpian, that he's the one as an individual have decided to do these things, and therefore he's going to push back against the whole system. That ain't the way this system works. There's factions of the ruling elite. One of them supports him, and he ain't gonna do a damn thing that faction of the ruling elite doesn't want. And there's Silicon Valley tech bros. There's other people though. There's other people who you haven't heard of who are really, really powerful, who put money behind Trump, saying, "Trump, get us out of Ukraine. I don't want to get nuked. Get us out of Israel." So they're gonna give us the Luigi treatment as members of the ruling elite. Get us out of this mess, and let's get back to getting our hands on money. That's what I say. But all of that means this, that it's the end of NATO. NATO can't survive. Remember, now think about this. What was the Biden team saying? We need a Asian NATO. They said that. We need a Middle Eastern NATO. They wanted to turn NATO into a worldwide military, U.S. military proxy machine. That's all NATO was going to be. We'll use this proxy to go after China. We'll use this proxy to go after Iran. That's all NATO was going to be, a worldwide, not just used in Europe and, of course, in the Middle East as it is. It was going to be a worldwide army for the U.S. empire to attack whoever it wanted. That was the plan. And I think that they're members of the ruling elite that just said this ain't going to work, and this thing's going real bad, and we got to get the hell out of here. And I think the overwhelming win by Donald Trump convinced them that they were right. It convinced them even more. We got to get out of this mess, and we got to figure a way out, because we're just digging ourselves deeper. And they knew that the Biden administration was only going to keep on digging. So we shall see what happens. But no matter what happens, I don't see an out for NATO. And as I said, the big thing of it is, how's it going to survive with no money? When the Europeans are too poor to support it, the US can't afford it, doesn't want it anymore. The only thing that the US wants out of Europe is their industry, is their money to leave them impoverished. And the sooner the Europeans figure that out, the better they will be. Let us do this. I'm going to look and see, do we have any? No super chats. That's okay. No super chats whatsoever. Let me look at Rockfin. Anybody? New tips. All right. Well, thanks a lot. And last but not least, we're going to check Rumble. Don't forget, everybody, that we now have a join button that you can join and become a member of the channel. And that will be highly appreciated if you're able to do that. Let me see if we got any Rumble rants. Got a Rumble rant. And that is from Marduk. That's who that is. That's how I pronounce it. Spelled Mardukgkob. And the Rumble Rant says, with gerbils leaving in a few days, Jobles? Oh, Jobles, I guess like Goebbels. Jobles leaving in a few days. How much do you think we'll end up hearing about him after the regime change? Oh, man. You're never, who? Joe who? I don't know who you're talking about. Never heard that name. His name will be washed from history. Very much from U.S. history. Oh, someone says Marduk, God King of Babylon. Oh, there you go. Yeah, no, I think Biden, they're gonna do their best to try to forget Joe Biden if they can. They're gonna try their best to forget Joe Biden. But it ain't gonna be easy because that dude has done some serious damage. Him and his flock of lunatics and sociopaths. All right, let's look here. Y'all, Borgen says Kamala said she'll give NATO $700. There you go. No, they're going to give what is it? $740 each for NATO. Let's look at this. We got a new member, and it's Zach. Thanks a lot, Zach. Everybody, don't forget, we got a join button, and you can become a member of the channel. All you got to do, I think it's like $4.99 a month, so you can afford that. But thanks a lot for the super chat. Yeah, no, I don't think we'll hear a lot about him. I think they're going to try to put the kibosh on any discussion about Joe Biden. They're going to try to pretend like it didn't happen. I really believe that the ruling elite have decided they want out of these wars and it'll happen. All the evidence is starting to say that. Think about this. Here we are days before Trump takes office. And here's what we are hearing now. That Trump's people went to the Middle East and said to Bibi Netanyahu, shut the hell up and take this deal. And that was it. And Netanyahu shut the hell up and took the deal, I've said all along, that's all the U.S. had to do. Come on, get out of here. The idea that Israel runs the United States. You don't understand the dynamic of power. That's like saying my hand controls me. Israel is a tool. It is a military and economic and political tool of the United States. It does not run the United States. If you have a screwdriver, that screwdriver does not run the person who's turning the screwdriver. And when Trump sent his boy Smitkoff or whatever his name over and said, you go tell them sons of bitches that they will take this deal and then come back and we'll talk then. And he went over there and said, Netanyahu, Smotrich, take the deal. Bye. Have a nice day. And he got in his plane and went the hell home. And they said, crap, darn it all. Trump forced us into this deal. He forced you out. Well, by the way, gee, I thought Israel was in charge. I thought we were just being dragged along by Israel. No, we aren't. And Trump proved it. He sent his boy over. Trump didn't even call him. Trump didn't go over there. He didn't take a plane to meet with Netanyahu and the Israeli government. He didn't even get him on the phone. He sent one of his lackeys over there. Hey, you, Smitkoff. I never even heard of this clown before. Smitkoff. Hey, Smitkoff. Yeah, you go over there right now. You tell Bibi Netanyahu he will shut the hell up and he will take this deal. And tell Smotrich and all the rest of them, if any of them so much as blinks, I will personally shove my foot through so far down their throat that I'll be able to reach out their asshole and tie their shoes. Okay, you tell them I said that, and then you come back. And Smitkoff went over there and said, guys, you don't want to say no to this, and you don't have the opportunity to say no to this. Goodbye. And Biden could have did that any day he wanted, but he didn't do it because he didn't want to do it. Do not think he's some kind of a good guy that was dragged along. Oh, Tony Blinken was dragged along to commit a genocide. Tony Blinken wakes up every morning dreaming of the next genocide. Oh, thank God and glory. We've got a genocide going on today. Can we possibly get another one somewhere? Only one genocide? That ain't enough for me. That's Tony Blinken. So Trump's people decided it was over. Trump made a phone call, sent Smitkoff over. Game over. See ya. Bye. Done. Oh, how hard was that? And I've been listening to Trump lately. He's been talking about Ukraine. And what has he been saying? We're getting out. I mean, interpret what he's saying. We're done. It's over. Trump's son tweeted a while back, like maybe about 3 or 4 or 5 months ago. His son tweeted something that said, Zelensky, the ATM will be closed on January 20th, right? There's a faction of the ruling elite that's decided no more. So when Donald Trump comes in on January 20th, I think 2 people he's going to talk to. One of them is going to be Zelensky. And if he hasn't already, he's going to say, Zelensky, you get nothing. Nothing. You got nothing coming. Sorry, bad news for you, dude. You ain't getting any more weapons, ATACMS, bombs, Patriot missile systems. You can go ask those idiots in Europe for their stuff. Let them give you their stuff. You get nothing from me. And he'll say to the Europeans, you idiots, you can keep giving them your stuff if you want to. They're getting nothing from us. And he's going to talk to the Russians and he's going to say, I hate Zelensky worse than you guys. The only people that hate Zelensky worse than you is me. And I want out. Can you give me you got a deal? The Russians will be like, well, we've got this. He'll snatch it out of their hands. Perfect. Where do I sign? There you go. Zelensky, take the deal or not, because we're out of here. Now, I'm being a little facetious. I'm just saying, Donald Trump, they asked him the other day, and he literally said, well, Vladimir Putin decides how this war ends. How do you interpret that? That's an easy interpretation. Here's what he's saying. I don't give a shit. Hey, what's happening in Ukraine? Oh, don't say that word around me. This is the sooner that I never have to hear the word Ukraine and Zelensky again, the better off I'll be. One of the guys that tried to kill him was a Ukrainiac. I don't think Trump has a lot of love in his heart for the Ukraine. He wants out. And I think he's going to tell Zelensky, you're done. You better take this deal. Why not take the money and run, bro? Go ahead, pack up the money you've stolen and get the hell out. Because that's my suggestion for you. Because the Ukraine will probably fall into disrepair and civil war and strife and all kind of terrible things. Needless to say, you poor Europeans, you get screwed again. Millions of Ukrainians will be piling out, running out of the country, running into Europe, and you're going to say, we're not going to take any more Ukrainian refugees. Bad news, they ain't listening. They're going to keep coming. Things ain't looking good for Europe. I'm just saying. Germany, Ukrainian refugees are going to pack. They'll be everywhere. Poland, they'll be everywhere. So you're kind of screwed. The Russians are going to say, we ain't taking no more Ukrainian refugees. Go west, young men. Go west. There'll be a bunch of guys goose stepping around Berlin again. But this time they'll all be Ukrainians. Well, some of them were Ukrainians before, but you get my point. They're going to abandon it and they're going to leave the mess for Europe and walk away. And you know what Trump's going to say to some degree, validly so? I think one of the things that Trump's going to say is to the European ruling elite, well, I was never in for this. I was never down with this. I don't like this war. You were down with it. You supported it, and you're still asking for support. You're going to have to handle it. It is your war. It is your region. You're going to have to handle it. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm getting out. Bye. See ya. Oh, by the way, we're selling you lots of LNG for 4 times the normal price. Have a good day. They're screwed, blued, and tattooed. All right. Let's see. We got Ricky. Let's see what else we got. Let's go down. We got some super chats. Thank you. Zach, good old Zach is now a YouTube member. Thanks a lot, Zach. Next, we got, oh no, what happened? I just had a super chat. Is it gone? Okay, here's that. Oh, here we go. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. All right, we're going to y'all Borgen. Kamala said she'd give NATO $700. There you go, 700 per person, right? All right. Junkins, $10. Thanks a lot, Junkin. Oh, we got another one, and it is Edward Rodriguez. Edwin Rodriguez became a YouTube member. Thanks a lot, but we're getting plenty of members joining up. Please, it's only like $4.99 a month. Become a member, please. We got a family going here. All right. Garland, Biden got on whitehouse.gov when you started and made a speech about how he orchestrated the ceasefire. Didn't mention Trump at all. Of course he has to. Sure. Yeah, everybody believes that. You just happen to wait until the day before Trump went in. Here's the thing about it. Let me say this about the ceasefire. People know that Trump's Smitkoff went over there. Why are the Israelis complaining about Trump? The Israelis are saying Trump forced this deal on us. And they're like, hey, Trump forced, read the Israel newspaper. Trump forced a deal on us. Trump told us we had to take this deal. Trump's pushing us around. Biden, I did it. So who knows with poor Joe Biden? He doesn't really know where he is. He may believe it. But the bottom line is everybody knows that Trump did this. And of course, the Biden administration had to do it before. They had to do it before Trump comes into office. They had to do this. The Biden administration probably was told by Trump, I'm going to put a stop to this. At that point, they had to stop it before Trump comes in. Can you imagine the egg on the Biden administration's face? If Joe Biden goes 16 months of genocide telling us, I can't stop this, Trump comes in Monday, hey, Bibi, yeah, shut the hell up and shut this thing down. Click. And it shuts down. And they're like, hey, Biden, why couldn't you do that? No, he has to do this before Trump comes in. He knows that Trump's closing it, so he can't wait for Trump to sign the deal. He has to try to, and now he'll say, see, look what I did before I left. I got a ceasefire deal. Isn't this great? It's mine. It's not Trump's, really. Then why do the Israelis tell us it's Trump's? All right. So, and see, Biden, the only reason he got on whitehouse.gov at that time is because he knew I was on, that bastard. He did that to upend me, to take all my glory, but we're not going to do it. And you know who's not allowing it? Ricky, because Ricky is now a YouTube member. Ricky, don't lose that number. Or is it Ricky? It's the only one I got. Okay. No, that was Steely Dan. Big Steely Dan fan. Big Steely Dan fan. I actually went to see Steely Dan one of the last times before what was the guitarist guy? I think he died, right? And I saw them in Northern Virginia. Oh my God. You know, Steely Dan has like these incredible, when they went on, they're such perfectionists. When they went on tour, they got like the best studio musicians in the country that you could get, right? The best musicians. And when I went and listened to Steely Dan live, it sounded like I was sitting in my office listening to it in this, with my speakers. It sounded just so sweet and perfect. It sounded exactly like they do, in the studio when you, CDs or whatever you have with them on there, albums back in the day. So one of my favorites, incredible musician, Stevie Dan. How about that? All right. Thanks a lot. Someone says, here come them Santa Ana wins again. How about that? Some Steely Dan fans in there, right? There's probably some people drinking a Black Cow. All right. Look, again, everybody, thank you very much. If you can afford to, you see everything going by. We got Patreon. You can become a Patreon member. We've got the information is on there for PayPal or Buy Me a Coffee is always great. Just buy Garland a coffee. Go to Buy Me a Coffee. You can see the thing right there. Go to the Buy Me a Coffee. See, it says .com/Garland in, and they added an H at the end. I don't know why, but it just says buy Garland a coffee. How much? $5. How many? However many you want. One, maybe. I don't know. 10. Whatever you can afford. And of course, you can do just like Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee now, which means you can become a monthly subscriber if you choose, but you don't have to. That's why a lot of people like Buy Me a Coffee, because you can do the Patreon kind of thing if you want to, or you can just do it one time. Here's 10 beans, whatever you can afford. All right. Even the Cash App information is there. And please, members, we want lots and lots of members. Click on that join button and become a member. We had several people do it today, and I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Most importantly, share this on all your social media platforms. I'm out.